Somatic everything seems to be the trend these days, like claiming to help with everything from happiness to weight loss to even like tripling our finances. So, really? Today I've got Shola Arewa here, who has worked in the field for over 3 decades, and she's going to give us the scoop on whether it's worth jumping on the somatic bandwagon. Hey, guess what? You can do less and still be on top of everything. The voice that says everything will just fall apart is total mind BS. Shola, I've heard somatic healing all over the place. Tell me, does it work? And what have you seen over the last 30 years in your practice?
So around 30 years, maybe even 30 years plus, I actually became a somatic psychotherapist. And of course, 30 plus years ago, there was no real buzz around it. And so I do think it's kind of really interesting to speak about that journey and that kind of trajectory from 30 some years ago to where we are today. So when we say somatic therapy today, does it mean the same thing as when we said it 30 some years ago? What I think people are now referring to is just to come back into your body. Listen to the wisdom of your body. If it's yoga, I think people are inviting you to slow down a little bit so that you can really listen to your body. So, which is very difficult because a lot of yoga teachers, they don't stop talking. They just talk and talk and talk, and you don't get an opportunity to listen to your body. So let me just start by saying that I am a somatic therapist and I work really in ways that relate to the body, the mind, and the spirit. So all of those three have been really important to me on my journey as somebody who supports people. Ultimately, I want people to be healthy, happy, and successful. And that hasn't really changed for me over those years. The ways that I do it may have changed slightly, but ultimately, your health, your happiness, and your success is really, really important. So back to the question around somatic therapy or somatic healing, some of the terms that we hear today. Well, it's not as exciting or sexy as it really sounds.
Maybe the word's not sexy, but the healing is.
Because soma just means body. It kind of means the intelligence of the body. Initially, somatic therapies were really about, now one of the things that people say is the issues in the tissues. So the somatic therapies were one of the first ones to connect with the tissue and start to get the information from it. So if you don't want to maybe share everything, which we now know is not such a good thing because it re-traumatizes people, somatic therapy will kind of bypass that because it allows us to connect with the intelligence, consciousness, wisdom of the body. And we say the body never lies. And so you can continue to do your kind of work, even if you don't have words for everything, or if some of the issues are actually pre-verbal issues, i.e., in the first few months of life, or even before, while the child is still in the womb. Somatic therapy is going to work really well.
So I love that you're talking about intelligence of the body, because this was a true transformation for me. I grew up being taught that my intuition is not to be trusted. It's too wishy-washy. I got to go with logic and facts. The things that my body was telling me were to be shoved down. Like, don't be a crybaby, just suck it up and do it. Be like everybody else. Don't make waves, those sort of messages. And so I moved into my 20s with a sort of a logic rules, get a job that pays high salary, not caring at all about what I actually like to do. And so I think it's very interesting that we're moving into a phase of coming back to ourselves. And one of the things that I love to do is sort of figure out what those words mean. What does it mean to come back to yourself? How would you describe it?
I like that question. I really like because I'm the kind of person who use language like that. I talk about coming back home to yourself. But I guess what I mean when I first started some of the somatic practices, actually, one of the things that we would have people do is a really, really simple thing is to just kind of take your arm and just make a contact and just make that contact very, very light, a little bit, maybe a little bit deeper. Maybe take two fingers and make that contact and be present enough to feel into that space. So let's say we might kind of, touch our body, but we're not there.
Mm.
So we don't feel that. We can't sense into the body. So I think the invitation to come home to the body is to kind of return to a place of presence where you can actually feel into, and I think in relation to what you're saying as well, Christina, to actually be able to feel into and also trust what you experience.
I think that's a huge point there, that idea of trusting yourself and trusting your body. Because when you get to that point, it creates a sense of security and a sense of calm and peace, that you know that no matter what, you are making a decision that moves you forward on your life path. Because I know for me, it shows up when I don't trust, it shows up as anxiety, and I start researching. Oh, like maybe I need a different job. Maybe that's why I'm not happy. And I start looking at all these different jobs and thinking about, oh, what it would be like if I, and you can even hear my voice getting, faster and faster, my mind just spinning, spinning. And when I've learned these somatic techniques of how to get back in my body, that spinning stops and the anxiety stops. And it's been truly transformational for me. So I was wondering if you could tell us about a transformation that you've seen in your practice where somebody has come in and you have helped them become who they were always meant to be.
Yeah, I think so much happens. So much happens when you return. And over these years, I've worked with so many clients. But I remember one particular person I was working with who was working in, corporate environment, really stressed out, busy, exhausted all the time, also had a family to take care of. And she came for a bodywork session. And I did something that was very, very subtle. It's a practice that we call the six-pointed star. There's a very, very subtle somatic work, very, very subtle body work. And I did this particular treatment on her. And when she got up off the couch, I can remember her asking me, "What happened? What was that? What did you do?" And I explained that what I had done was the six-pointed star, and that six-pointed star is really about creating balance and creating harmony. Now, this technique had such an impact on this client that she actually left her corporate job and, believe it or not, became a somatic therapist.
Wow. It's amazing when you encounter something that just feels so right, like coming back to yourself feels so right. And that's amazing that she wanted to ripple that out into the world, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just one other thing around it, because I work a lot with the kind of somatics, but also with energy itself and the chakra system, which can sound even more kind of like out there than somatic does. But when we talk about coming back to the self, for me, I think it relates to the sacral chakra, which is the second of seven energy centers in the body. And it's the one that relates to water energy. Now, when water is turbulent, if you look in that water, you wouldn't be able to see anything. But if you allowed that water to still, so you gave it a moment, you slowed down a moment, you became still, you became silent. And then you looked in the water, as that water also stills, now you will see a reflection of yourself. So when we talk about coming back home to self, it's about returning to that sacral chakra as well, which I think of as the sacred home of I. So when those waters still, you get that opportunity to reconnect with yourself.
That's beautiful. I love that. So if somebody was wanting to get into this and take a journey into somatic therapy for themselves so they can come home to themselves, what would you recommend they look for?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And I think because there are so many different therapies, ones that have been around for 30 and 40 years and some that are much newer that would refer to themselves as somatic. But I think find a therapist or find a person that you really resonate with. Do your research. If somebody's going to lay their hands on your precious body temple, you want to know that person is actually well trained and experienced.
Hmm. Does it always involve touching?
Good question. Ooh, not necessarily. Not necessarily, because I think some therapies can be away from, so a little bit off the body, and some therapies can invite you to do the work yourself. So, say, for example, I trained therapists and coaches, and one of the ways that I train them is to have hands-on treatments. So there are ways that we work with clients that are hands-on, but we also resource the clients. So what that means is there are other practices, some that we do, but we also teach you how to do that yourself. So even the one I mentioned, the six-pointed star, someone can do that on your body, or they can show you how to do that and you do it yourself.
Hmm.
So no, it doesn't always involve touch.
Interesting. Cool. See, I have done a lot of what I would consider somatic therapy, and not one time has there been touch involved.
Okay,
And
interesting.
so, yeah, it's so interesting. I think it would be more powerful because when you were, talking about touching your arm and stuff like that, when you touch yourself, it feels different than if somebody else touches you. We have a different awareness about our own touch, which is familiar, versus somebody else's touch, which may not be familiar. So, yeah.
Yeah. But I think the thing with when we touch self, sometimes we're not always there.
Hmm.
You can, like maybe if you just oil or put some cream on your body, we're like that.
Yeah.
And you weren't there.
No, nope, just going
That's
through the
very,
motion.
very different to if each movement, you're there. You're
Hmm.
there with your hand. It's a language, it's a conversation. You're there. And so I think that's a skill that we develop as well through these practices.
Yeah, it's like the combination of the stillness with the presence with the somatic touch. Very cool.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for being here. Tell me, how can people get a hold of you if they want to know more about how to work with you?
So, yeah, one of the things I wanted to share was about energy for life, actually. I have a book that's called Energy for, that's number 4, Life. And some of the things that I spoke about are actually in that book. So it has energy balance techniques, including the six-pointed star. So that's one of the things. You can also find me at Shola, that's SHOLA.co.uk, shola.co.uk, which is my website. You'll find books on there. You'll find lots of things around energy. You'll find mentoring. Maybe you are a somatic therapist and you're looking to really elevate the business side of things, definitely reach out. For trainings in somatics, you can also reach out. And one of the things is if you want to know more about the energy and what's happening for yourself energetically as well, then you can go to Shola, Shola, .co.uk /chakras. And there's lots of stuff around chakras on that page, but at the top, you'll find a quiz where you can identify your own kind of energetic signature and start to get a sense of what's happening within your own body, within your own mind as well, and in your own energy.
Fantastic. So I'm going to put all of those links in the description so you can connect with Shola whenever you are ready to get started on your somatic journey. And before we sign off today, is there any last message that you would like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I just like to say to people, be mindful that you're living your life on purpose, with passion, in peace. And really understanding your physical journey is a big part of that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I want to live my life on purpose with passion and peace too. And I would add another P to that for me particularly, which is productivity.
Yeah.
I would like to combine peace and productivity into some magical, mystical combination that just lights me up. Wonderful.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because when we pull on the body and when we pull on the energy, and we're not just working with the mind. So when we do understand our kind of somatic relationship, our energetic relationship, then we can work in ways that kind of pull on more aspects of our whole self. We can be more productive with less. We can create ease.
Yes, and without depleting ourselves too.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you.
What if self-care wasn't a dirty word? Hit subscribe and we'll see if we can make that happen.